Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast. And this time I actually remembered to press record for the beginning of the interview. So surprisingly, we actually have two more episodes that are going to be tucked into this Creating New Earth series. We thought we were done with Paul Selig, but we came across two other people we needed to be able to put into this series. One of them is our guest today, Dave Vass, which we'll introduce in just a moment. And then the following week, we're going to have Neil Donald Walsh, authors of the Conversations with God series. So they're going to be a part of this. So I think we'll be going till the end of the month. Now, we came across Dave not too long ago. I think like last week, we ended up having our conversation and we were really talking about this concept of healing immersions and retreats and just what's entailed to really create an environment that fosters well-being and allows people to start to heal. And we really should have just recorded that because it was such a great conversation. But because we didn't, we decided to set it up for today and share it with all of you. So Dave has been married to his beautiful wife, Jennifer, for about 20 years. They've got three teenagers, 18, 16, and 14. Dave grew up riding horses on a ranch in Alberta, and Dave and Jennifer met while taking kinesiology at University of Calgary, which instilled a love for fitness and nutrition. Over the last 15 years, Dave has successfully started and exited various companies in the tech industry. During COVID, his dad passed away from being intubated, which changed the course of his life. Now, Dave and Jen have a mission to help those who are suffering from cancer find true healing and rest. As such, they've dedicated their 40-acre resort in the Okanagan to the Healing Oasis. Dave, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Taya.
You're welcome. So I'd love to hear a little bit about just your story on how you got into going from the tech industry to being in a 40-acre resort in the Okanagan Valley, which is basically where I grew up. I grew up in Penticton, so you guys are not too far from there.
And I just wanted to preface this too, when Dave, when you reached out to us and had shared of your center in BC, audience may know we are also in BC right now, and this is truly a collaborative mission. And as far as different retreats being set up and really getting out there as of this year, specifically in 2024, we feel that it's synchronicity kind of amplifying. And as far as the message of like, it's needed, healing is necessary. We need to invest more time in going within and taking care of ourselves and tending to this inner ability to actually come to a place of healing, which is possible if we go to places of quiet, go within nature, and really nourish our body in the way that it needs to be nourished at this time. So thanks so much. I think this will be a really timely conversation for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to be here. So yeah, how did I go from riding horses on a ranch in Alberta to tech to starting the Healing Oasis? I often say to people that life is like being on a river and you're just being taken down the river with a current. You don't have any idea where you're going, and you can either fight it, you can try to swim upstream, but at the end of the day, the river's going to take you where you're going. And in the same way, my life has taken me into this direction, and I never would have dreamt it. I was building tech companies. Actually, I don't know if any of your audience knows Y Combinator. I'm wearing my Y Combinator shirt. It's one of the biggest tech incubators in the world. It's in San Francisco. So my company was accepted to that. And we had raised venture capital, which is, as you know, is pretty hard to do. So I was at the peak of my tech career, really. And I thought that's, as you can imagine, I've risked everything. And I thought, this is where I'm going with my life. I've always had a passion and desire for health. So has my wife. But I mean, that was my career. And then my dad, during COVID, ended up getting intubated. And as most of your audience will know, that didn't turn out very well for a lot of people. And that drastically changed my life. My dad was one of my best friends, and he was 69 years old, and I didn't get to see him. And so I just said, that's it. I want to do something. Life is too short. I can't believe that this is happening in the world. And so I had this burning desire in my heart that I wanted to help people. And the hospital system just seems so cold and such I don't know, just such a cold environment. And I had so many people around me that were getting cancer, dying of cancer. So long story short, basically a few miracles happened, and it's quite the story, but I ended up getting this property, this resort. It has 7 cabins around a private lake, and it's in the Okanagan, one of the most beautiful properties. We have a natural spring that comes down from the mountain that we have the rights to, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And we've dedicated that to the Healing Oasis, which is a place for people to come and heal from cancer. So yeah, so that's been the journey, that in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot of details in that journey, but that's where I'm at today. So
Dave, why cancer? What was the reason to focus in on cancer? Was that something that you guys had personally experienced, or was a part of your history in any way, or why kind of moving into the big field of cancer?
yeah, that's a great question. Thankfully, it hasn't touched me personally, like my own life or my wife or my own immediate family. However, I went to a high school and I graduated with only 24 kids in that high school. That was, you guys will date my age, but it was 1999. I graduated from high school. And 2 kids have already died of cancer from my school. There's been multiple people that I knew from my school, their parents and stuff have died of cancer. A teacher from my kids' school in her 30s just passed away from cancer just a few months ago. So it's literally all around me. And I guess maybe it has something to do with me starting tech companies and people telling me, my last tech company, I had a guy, no word of a lie, he sat down with me and he said, you have 0% chance. That was before we raised venture capital and all this stuff. And we're one of the biggest success stories in Alberta history for a tech company, a startup. And this guy sat down with us. He was a seasoned investor and he said, you have 0% chance. And it was like, so I think I'm used to tackling problems that people think you're crazy. And cancer seemed to be one of those biggest problems where there's been billions of dollars from people donating, and it seems like it's only getting worse. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in this. All I know is that if you come with the right motive in your heart and you have a vision, I know you can make a difference. So that cancer was just the thing that both my wife and I felt like it was one of the greatest needs right now for people that are suffering. And I feel like this place can be used for that.
So does that mean the raising of the funds for pink ribbon initiatives is not working?
Yeah,
And I say this with a bit of a tongue in cheek because that's really bothered me. I mean, some of you may be aware too, my own father died from leukemia last month in December. And I know that, I've seen signs in the back of cars oftentimes saying like F cancer, as if cancer is an enemy. But in our private conversation last week, we had briefly touched on this, in that just the word cancer, it seems like it's so imbued with fear and doubt and confusion that as soon as it's even given to a person to describe their condition or what it is that their body is dealing with, it's the person feels defeated right off the bat. And I feel like these Band-Aid ways of dealing with or looking at cancer is so futile, because it's really not getting to the heart of the problem. Yeah. And there have been cures that we've heard of, and people who have also disappeared, who have come up with different cures for cancer. But here we are in 2024, where so much money is being raised in the name of cancer.
And there's still more cancer.
There's still more and more cancer.
Yeah, and you're touching on something that I get pretty passionate about, because I raised money. I understand what it's like to run a company, to have a board, to have shareholders, and people, they don't understand. And I don't know why they don't see this, but pharmaceutical companies have shareholders, and the entire purpose of the company is to make a profit. And if they're trying to make a profit, then they cannot truly cure the disease, because their profit will end. I mean, And I know people are like, oh, come on. I'm like, no, you don't understand. They have to keep this going. It's a money train. And so we're sitting here and I'm like, when will people see that we got to do something different? I think the definition of insanity is, I think it was attributed to Einstein, where it says, if you keep doing the same thing, expect different results. It's the definition of insanity. You can't keep doing it over and over. And for the last 100 years or more, there's been three options to cancer. It's been, surgery, chemo, and radiation. And I don't want to be here today trying to tell someone what they should do or don't do with cancer. That's not my place. All I know is that we need to give people the ability to heal in a different way than what the traditional medical system is offering. And there's no, I need to stress this. Why isn't the pharmaceutical or the medical industry doing it? Because there's no money in it. I mean, my wife and I had to make our money from tech in order to buy this place, in order to donate it, in order to, to be able to use it for the Healing Oasis. And that comes from a passion in our heart. It doesn't come from me saying, oh, I want to make a profit. If I was still trying to make a profit, I'd stay in the tech industry. So I guess what I'm saying is it's rare for this to happen because the medical system's driven by profits. It's corrupted. The pharmaceutical companies all have to keep getting higher and higher profits every year. So I'm pretty passionate about this because I want people to see that there is a different way of approaching healing. And I think that we're tapping into that at the Healing Oasis, which I can get into in a bit. But
yeah, I find the same conversation can get really frustrating because and I think it just goes to the goodwill of most people, where they just don't want to believe that something might not be 100% in their best interest. And it doesn't mean that a lot of times the caretakers are necessarily thinking that. It's a system, and the whole system, like you said, is set up in a very specific way. But I do think more light is being drawn on that, and I think people are realizing too that it's not really working. Otherwise, cancer would be getting a lot better, and it's not. It's getting a lot worse. So we're missing something on it, even if you just look at it logically. And I know that a lot more people are looking for some sort of alternative, whether they want to do something totally different or whether they want to try to do something where they blend the two different worlds. But from my experience, one of the things that at least I've seen over and over again with cancer is it's like, as soon as people hear that word, like Taya was saying, they get in, it's a really like a black hole. Like I feel like it just sucks people in, almost this feeling of like out of control, no sense of self-authority. All of the healing is put outside of themselves into somebody else's hands. They're telling them exactly what to do. And then it's all fear thinking around what they're going to do. So it's a really, and I mean, just seeing it firsthand, you can see how that whole pathway goes. From my experience, something that has to take place for healing to really set in, it needs to create a field. There needs to be an overall field that allows for that person to start to connect the dots, and healing has to be in this physical, mental, emotional, spiritual planes. It's not just taking one thing that's going to get rid of it. It has to be through these different areas. I think I was talking to you before with one of the books that we had called Radical Remission, and she was going through thousands of cases of terminally ill patients, and a lot of them with terminally ill cancer. And how did they go through spontaneous remissions? What took place? And she narrowed it down, I think, to, was it 7 or 8 key things that they found across the board. And only a few of them were actually major physical changes. Most of them, only 2 of them. The other ones were all in the realms of big perspective changes, healing emotions, rethinking things, being tied to nature, being in a different environment. So from my perspective, it's like and whether it's cancer or anything else, I think those set points are there for just about everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've been interviewing people that have had stage 3, stage 4 cancer, and it's one of the most enlightening things I've done, because I'm speaking to these people, asking them, okay, so what happened when you got cancer? And of course, all of them say they got diagnosed. They right away fear. Every one of them, it's like massive fear. And by the way, it's sort of rings true to what they did with COVID, how my dad was handled in the hospital. It's all fear-based. And it's like, right now, you got to get chemo on Monday. Oh, we can get you in on chemo on Monday. You got to get this done. And oh, you're going to die in 6 months, or you're going to, and what right do they have to even say that to somebody? I mean, it's crazy. So the fear is just massive. And then of course the person doing it is wearing a white coat, and they look so authoritative. They have so much authority around this, at least you assume, and so much knowledge, and you don't even have time to think. And so they use this fear. And when you're talking to people that have been through this, that have healed themselves, and again, I've looked them in the face, stage 4, they were told they're gonna, my parents, when I grew up, there was a friend that I had, her name's Paula Martins. It was the first interview I did. She came out here, she had brain cancer, and it was the first podcast I ever did. And they were told, you're guaranteed, like, everybody dies. You have no chance. It's been 15 years of her living. And how did she do it? Massive, drastic change on her diet, drastic change with her, like she had to deal with her emotions, spiritual healing. And it's fascinating to me, because every time I talk to these people and I say, okay, you would think that it's just nutrition, like that's it. And by the way, every one of them, they had to deal with nutrition. And I'm going to get into the traditional medical system because I want to deal with that. But every single one of them definitely drastically changed their diet. That's why, I'll talk about the Healing Oasis and what we're doing to help people do that. But they drastically changed their diet. But I was amazed, and maybe I shouldn't have been amazed, but I was. I'm telling the truth. I'm amazed that all of them, without question, said that it wasn't just the nutrition, that it was the emotional healing, the spiritual healing. They had to get out of the environment that they were in. They had to drastically change every part of their life. Some of them had to, I guess they were holding on to bitterness. They had to find forgiveness. And you would think that, I think some people think, oh, come on, that can't be, but it is. You're talking to these people who have healed themselves, that were supposed to die. And you need to listen to these people, because they're telling you, no, this is how the body heals itself. And so I was very surprised by that. And of course, does our medical system do anything with that? Nothing. They don't even touch on that. In fact, if you don't mind, I want to tell a quick story of I knew this guy years ago. He got cancer, and he's drinking Coca-Cola, and he's taking chemo, which obviously is destroying the cells of his body. And then he's drinking Coca-Cola, and he's eating licorice. And I said, did your doctor say that was okay? And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? This makes no difference. And he said, the doctor said it doesn't matter what you eat. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how is it that we're in, how are we doing this? Like, it's a proven scientific fact that what you're eating is affecting cancer. I mean, this is just a proven thing. And yet the oncologists, they don't talk to people about this because they're not trained in it. And so there's got to be we got to make a difference. There's got to be different approaches to this. And right now, before the Healing Oasis started, people could go to Mexico, they could go to Europe, they could go, there's different places, but there's got to be more and more people across Canada that start doing things differently, in order to solve this problem, because it's only getting worse. So
I remember my father, who had leukemia. I mean, he had that condition over probably 10 years ago initially. And it was, under control, whatever that means, for a long period before he ended up getting the shot for COVID. And then it came back with a vengeance. But the first time I went with him to the doctor's appointments, and I was astounded to hear that too. After the chemo treatments, the first round, he had an appointment with a dietitian and a pharmacist, which he had the option of going and hearing them out. And I was curious, because he asked me, like, is that worth even going to see them? And I said, yeah, why not? Let's see what they're saying at the hospital level. And the conversation of diet came up. My dad said, is it important at all what I drink? Like, is my coffee still good? Am I able to have my sweet drinks and what have you? And they said, yes, absolutely. Diet has nothing to do with it. In fact, they recommended the boost drinks, the nutritional drink, which are filled with sugar, all synthetic.
The one that actually got me was
I was so upset.
He used to like to do his like vegetable and fruit smoothies and stuff like that that we get like with organic stuff. And they actually told him he needed to stop that because the antioxidant those would counteract against the chemotherapy that he was taking. And I mean, I understand that. I've heard that conversation before, but it's like, this is where I feel like if we just were able to get back into like a common sense approach to our body, and we looked at two different, they actually said he was fine to have the canned high sugar juice, but he wasn't allowed to have fresh juice. Like, if we just were able to kind of from a common sense approach and just sort of tune into ourselves and kind of go, what actually feels like it might resonate more with our body? You know, I feel like we've just gotten so disconnected from what we would normally organically move to if we were connected to our body in the first place. But then to hear that, it was just like, oh my gosh, like what a backwards way of addressing this, and no concept at all around the importance of nutrition.
Oh, totally. And I mean, people, let me put it this way, because a lot of people think, well, are there studies? I mean, how do we really know? And there might be people watching, who knows, that are wondering, because cancer is such a serious thing that people are like, how do you choose to go down a road of nutrition and changing your lifestyle and emotional healing and fit? How do you go down that road when you're dealing with your life? And I get it. I'm interviewing people and I'm asking them, how did you make this choice? Like, one guy's like, everybody thought I was crazy. My whole family, they thought I was crazy. Anyway, he ended up healing cancer, but what a scary thing to go through. So I don't want to minimize what people are going through and the emotions, and they're trying to figure out, who do you trust? And we have this medical system that's set up that, you know, people think, well, you're supposed to trust them because there's been billions of dollars and they're the authority. And so, you know, people have a hard time. But let me put it this way, in a simple way that a lot of people can relate to. There is a cure to cancer. Surprisingly, there is a cure. And everybody knows, even the medical industry, and it's not like they're hiding it. There's a cure. It's called your killer T cells in your body and people can Google this. It's on YouTube. It even shows what they do, and they seek and destroy cancer cells every day. Even right now, you, me, we have killer T cells that our immune system's operating properly. And we are, it's going through and seeking out these cancer cells and destroying it. So now when you go from that foundation that, oh, okay, there is a cure. It's called, God gave you your killer T cells and they're seeking out cancer. So then the question that people have to ask is, okay, I have a tumor, I have cancer. The question they should say to their oncologist is, well, we know that killer T cells are destroying cancer cells. So what's wrong with my killer T cells? What's wrong with my immune system? And what's interesting is that their cure for cancer is chemo and radiation. Well, here's the thing. Chemo and radiation are destroying the very cure. The only cure that we have for cancer is your immune system, killer T cells. They're the only cure. Chemo and radiation are destroying it, which means even if you choose to take chemo and radiation, and I'm not here today to tell somebody, you know, what they're supposed to do for cancer or not do for cancer. I'm here to say, you have to understand that you have to build back your immune system. And your immune system is affected by what you eat drastically. It's affected by your environment. It's affected by your stress. It's affected by your spiritual well-being, your emotional well-being. All of those things affect your immune system. And so regardless of whether you take conventional treatments or you don't, you have to build back your immune system. And it's affected by sleep. It's affected by sunlight. It's, you know, all these things. And if you think of it, people are in the city and they're drinking dead water that's been chlorinated. They're not getting a lot of sleep. They're stressed out of their mind. They're not getting a lot of vitamin D. They're eating, and even if they think, well, I'm eating pretty good, I tried to cut out some sugars, but they're really not. When you're healing from cancer, you have to you have to drastically change your diet, and they're not getting enough exercise. They're not out in nature enough. And so all of these things are happening and they're not able to reset their immune system. And so what the Healing Oasis is all about, which I think a lot of people can get behind because it makes sense, is yeah, I really need to reset myself. I need to get into nature. I need to get away from everything, have a private chef that's cooking meals that I don't need to worry about, that's full of nutrition. I get enough sleep. I get a walk around in nature. I can do yoga classes. I can do gardening classes. I get some of the top alternative therapies in the world for cancer treatments. All of these things, if you stay for an extended period of time, are going to start resetting your system so that you can start to heal from cancer. And that's the vision that we have at the Healing Oasis.
Yeah, I think very much on a similar page. We've run retreats for a long period of time, and whether it's cancer or just about anything, I would say at this point, I mean, I find a lot of people are just on a downhill spiral because the way they've been living their life has just been setting things up for chronic illness, whether it's cancer or cardiovascular disease or arthritis or you name it. There's a whole slew of things that people,
Depression, anxiety.
yeah, and depression and anxiety. I mean, I would say that's even more rampant than almost anything right now because it wraps into everything. And what we've kind of found for the most part is that what I like about the idea of immersions is I really do feel like when you stop and go, okay, well, where am I? You have to look and go, well, whatever I've been currently doing is playing a role in where I currently am. And so I can't be in this same environment doing the same things and expect to see something big change. Something has to transition. And not that it can't be done like that, but I think it's a lot harder because you're just surrounded by so much familiarity. An aspect of it is really you need to get up and replace yourself in a totally different environment, eating very different things, being surrounded in a different environment where you're surrounded by nature, all of the different pieces of it. And then you can add on these supportive therapies. And there's lots of different ways to incorporate that and monitor things and work with them. And also like connect and have conversations with different people that help that next level of things start to shift and help people see their life and their perspectives in different ways.
It brings back a sense of meaning and purpose as well, which I think is often lacking in people's lives these days.
Well, on the same note, one of the things I think at the heart of it, I mean, you were talking about killer T cells, and what often I would find clinically, and this is over 20 years of working with people, is I would find a lot of times at the heart of most illness, if we were able to kind of get into it and have honest kind of dialogue and really look at it, at some level, most times we go through life with a real disconnect between what we know to be true in our hearts and then how we're living our lives. Something's out of connection. And I feel like the longer that is out of this connection, the way we're being in the world, the way we're doing things and what we know to be true in our hearts, when those things are out of balance, I just find we start to set up dysfunction in our body. I mean, that will trickle down. When you look at the sort of hierarchy of how health works, it's like a lot of the stuff starts on this more subtle field, and then that affects the blueprint for health in the physical. And so when things are out of balance up and through there, and this could be whether you're dealing with a lifetime of resentment or bitterness or heartache or grief or you name it. I mean, it's not so far out when you start to look at things from other types of medicine, like traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. All of these emotions are related to different meridians. All those meridians are related to different organ systems. They all relate to then the physical aspect of that system. So whenever anything is out of balance there, it all works through all of those different layers.
One of the big ones is feelings of abandonment that continually comes up as well for people.
Yeah, I would say those are big ones. Feeling of abandonment, feeling of not loved, issues, lack of worth, and then tying into, I think, like resentment and bitterness and not able to forgive. But the thing is you can't make that happen. You can't like say, I'm going to now forgive and be there if you're not feeling it. It's all in the head. So something has to take place where you're immersed in a field that just allows that to spontaneously arise. And that's when things change. Literally you switch into a different frequency or vibration or however you want to explain it. And what was formerly there, that illness, no longer resonates with that new way of being. And different people are doing that. You'll see people like Joe Dispenza talk about that. And you'll see tumors just fall off the body when people get into a certain place. And, self-healing experts like RJ Spina would say the same sort of thing.
Yeah. And I totally. And I think I hope I can relate to, I think, what people are going through, because I've interviewed people, and I have a good idea of, when people get cancer, it's not that they don't in their heart. And I like what you said, Jason. I think that in their heart, they know, you know what, I really need to eat better, and I need to hit this, and I need to emotionally heal, and I need to get rid of my stress. But here's the problem. How do they do that? I mean, let's be practical. They got kids. I have a friend from my school in my sister's class. She's beautiful. She's in her 30s and she has cancer, and she has three little girls. I mean, it's heartbreaking, heartbreaking. And just relate to this. Like, you have a family, you have bills to pay, you have cancer. They're telling you only have so much time to live. You're getting chemo. You're destroying your body. You're in pain. I mean, you're dealing with so much, and then you're supposed to try to change your lifestyle. Like, I mean, it's almost like it's overwhelming for people to do this. And then what easy way can they do it? So what people do is they go on and they're like, well, I can go to Mexico, but here's the problem. So you're going to go away from your three beautiful kids to Mexico for a month or 2 months. And guess what? Every mother in the world is thinking, if they have cancer, or even the dad or whatever, they're thinking, why would I want to be away from my family? Why would I want to be away? Sure, I want to go get healing. So people are caught in this trap where they're like, I obviously am going down. I'm going to try to get maybe the conventional treatments, but I also believe in my heart that I need to do more. And so the Healing Oasis, because it's in Canada, it's in the Okanagan, we've combined sort of a vacation with healing, meaning that our vision, and I don't know if anybody else has done this, is we're saying to people, bring healing. Starts not just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. So bring your children. We already have a packed out resort. We didn't have to do the Healing Oasis. We're packed every summer. We have people that have been coming for over 25 years. Their grandkids are now coming. That's how much they love this place. Children are connecting with their parents. There's no devices. There's no Wi-Fi. Every cabin has a kitchen, a bathroom. It's all around a lake. They can connect in nature. It's amazing watching families heal. Well, we're saying, as you have cancer, come and heal here, but bring your children. Why not go through healing and watch your kids playing in the sand, swimming in the lake, fishing, and having memories while you're healing? Isn't that what healing is supposed to be about? Why go off to a foreign country or a foreign land and not be able to bring your family? Why not do this as a family? If your husband or your wife is working, they can fly into the Kelowna International Airport and drive for the weekend and spend the weekend with you. To me, that's what healing is all about. And how can there be a downside to that? Somebody tell me how there's a downside, because you're eating well, you're getting a private chef that's making all the cancer fighting foods, you're getting top cancer therapies from a protocol of one of the top doctors in Canada that's treated over 10,000 cancer clients. You're getting a nutritionist that's keeping an eye on you and helping you with your activities. You're learning about gardening. You're learning about how to eat properly. And then you're creating memories with your family in an amazing environment. You're healing, not just physically but spiritually. How's there a downside to that? Even if cancer, and there's no guarantee in life, even if cancer, even if you end up passing away, how is there a downside compared to, and I'm not trying to put down our current system, but I have to say it's a pretty cold environment. You're getting treated for cancer. They're destroying your body with chemo and radiation. You're getting fed popsicles and cafeteria food. You're in a massively cold environment. How is that helping people that are suffering? I mean, I'm saying this because I get to say it, because pharmaceutical companies are doing this because they're making a profit, and I'm calling them out on it. How is that helping someone that's suffering? You're creating more suffering in their life. In their hardest time, you're creating more suffering. We need to rethink this and try to help people get out of their suffering. At least that's how I feel about it. So,
and the reason why people have been going to Mexico and Costa Rica and different places around the world outside of North America primarily is because it hasn't been allowed. So what's interesting is that there's different pockets popping up now of healing sanctuaries like yours, and what we're opening up to allow a different way of supporting and caring for each other, because a lot of us have just come to the very apparent realization that what has been done is clearly not working, and we need to do something very different. And we know it actually starts with a place of real care for one another, and a clear intention to actually take care of each other. And from how you're describing it with your shift and your change with your father's passing, it's almost like an activation of the heart, where
Yes.
the heart doors open up and say, okay, there needs to be a shift that happens right now in my life to give it greater meaning and purpose, in the same way that we're talking about. If we don't follow these inclinations, this intuitive nudge and push, then is possibly going to result in some disease down the road, because we're not following our heart's desire or our vision and mission as what we feel is important to do. And it's interesting because I feel like there are a lot more people within the population that are starting to look out for different options to tend to themselves, to take care of themselves. And I'm just curious just to see how that evolves, because in the past it hasn't been allowed. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that. Have you been receiving any sort of heat around that?
Well, I expect to, but it's interesting because I do have the doctor that I'm working with has a clinic in Winnipeg. He's treated over 10,000 people with cancer. They've flown everywhere. His lawyer is Sean Buckley, who maybe some of your audience knows. So I feel good. It's almost like God created this plan where I found myself with a doctor that's already done this, and he has this lawyer, and I've had to be in lawsuits. I don't recommend anyone ever go through a lawsuit in their life, but for some reason that was part of the plan of my life. I've had to go through lawsuits because of being in business. So I'm going to do the right thing. And this is the right thing. It's from my heart. I'm doing the right thing to help people. If the government is against us doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons, which is to help people that are suffering, then I'm going to fight it. And I don't know how I'm going to, if I need to fight it, I hope God gives me the strength to be able to do it, but I'm going to fight it. And so right now I am trying. I mean, I talked to you about PMAs and you know, how that can come in, and I'm trying to work it out. I'm actually trying to approach it from all angles, meaning like, can I have one of the best lawyers that can help if something happens? Do I form a PMA? Because basically when you fight a battle, you pretty much have to think of everything that could come at you. So it's funny you asked that, because it is in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm setting up a target for myself, but it's the right thing to do, Taya. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, that when you know it's in your heart and you're doing it for the right reason, if somebody's against that, then we have some serious problems. And I know the government, Health Canada, we know that they don't want this to happen. And it's that should cause people to go, wait a second. So a husband and his wife and their family have made all their money in the tech industry. They went and invested and risked everything for what? For what? Like, I risked everything. This isn't going to make us a bunch of money back. We're donating the place for the Healing Oasis. How, like, in other words, what other motive could I have? I mean, I used to have a boat. I used to be on the lake, on Lake Okanagan. My lifestyle was with my kids doing the boating thing. I mean, it was amazing. I've given all of that up. For what? It's because I want to help people. So if the government has a problem with that, then we need to fight it. That's how I see it. So
thanks for speaking to that. And also with regards to the disclaimer that we need to have at the beginning of all these sort of conversations that are around specifically health, people need to understand we're needing to have that up for any agents and officials and regulatory bodies that look onto this platform and these episodes in order to go after people. And so the disclaimer kind of says, ultimately you need to go see a health professional and get their advice within the conventional medical system, because we have to say that. So I just wanted to clarify that as well.
Well, and you'll see that everywhere nowadays. You can't have anything without having that same disclaimer everywhere.
It's one of the main reasons as to why Jason gave up his license as well, is because there's way too much control and coercion happening at the regulatory bodies that are telling health practitioners what they are allowed to say, and this is no exaggeration, what they are allowed to say and what they are not allowed to say.
And that's going to get more intense,
Yeah.
particularly in BC this year, because that one specific bill that regulates health professionals is going to be enacted this year. So we'll see what happens, but it's just going to get tighter. So sometimes in order to have the kind of conversations and be able to open up to the plethora of different options available for people, you have to find ways to do it that are outside. It's like when you are governed in a certain way, you only have so many options. And so, but what I think is really beautiful, Dave, though, is that I think more and more people are questioning all of that. And I think people are pushing, because it's like you do get a calling and you do get an idea that says, I've got to do something different. I know this isn't the best way to do things. There's got to be more options. And then we start to push it, and more people are starting to try to find different ways to incorporate some of this stuff. And what's so crazy about it is it's like, it's really getting back down to basics in so many ways. You know, it really is getting back down to basics, being able to have a language to be able to even talk about it openly without feeling like you have to be so careful with every single word you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be hard for Health Canada to I'm never going to say to people that we are selling a cure. I'm telling people the truth, and Health Canada can never come at me for this, is that your killer T cells are the cure to cancer. It's already in you. It's not I can't sell it to you. You already have it. So the place that I'm creating is to foster healing. It's to foster getting your immune system back. It's to create, this environment. So I'm not sitting here making any kind of claims or anything. I'm just telling people the truth. This is the truth. And hey, by the way, if you want to go and eat well and juice well and change your environment somewhere else, then I hope then I've done something to allow you to do that. I'm just simply creating a place where if people are like, well, I don't know where to go, I don't know how to do this. Well, here, you can come here. So I am, because I know what Health Canada, obviously, and a lot of these, they want to catch people like making claims around curing, and are you selling somebody something, trying to convince them that it's going to cure a disease. And I'm sitting here going, I have no intention to make money selling a cure. That is not what I'm here for. I'm here to create an environment for well-being and healing. So I'm not I'm not afraid. It is in the back of my mind, and I am doing everything I can to take precautions, and I won't get into all the details, but because I'm doing it out of sincerity and I know where the motive of my heart is, I'm not too afraid, because I think when you do something right, God's behind you. So you got this force of good that's behind you that can overpower anything that's evil. So
And I think that's thank you for that. And I think that's really important for even health practitioners to hear right now, because I feel like the more we speak openly of what's taking place without censoring, and the more of us that actually step forward and have these conversations, people will become aware. The lay individual will become aware of what is actually going on, because most people don't know what's happening behind the scenes and the restrictions that are in place for people and groups that are wanting to create these healing sanctuaries, or that do genuinely want to find true ways of healing. And so we have to recognize that we can't actually make our way out of tyranny and the coercion and the major restrictions that are taking place right now through complacency. Because we're agreeing to it if we're actually not saying anything and going along with it. So we do need to have a very strong wake-up call as to, we do need to have a change of approach if that's how we're approaching our life, because it is going to affect each and every single one of us.
Well, it's even just funny the way it's set up. It's like, medical doctors can use the term curing cancer if they talk about it through surgery, radiation, or chemo. Anybody else is not allowed to. You cannot actually use the word cure anything. You'll get in big trouble if you use the word cure, but you can use it if you're talking about chemo. So it's like, I remember the doctor that was working with Taya's dad. Taya's dad chose the oncologist. Taya's father, my father-in-law, wanted to do chemo. He was terrified. It was wrapped into the system.
Well, they told him, similar thing. You'll probably have 6 months to live if we cure, he used the word cure, your condition. I kind of oscillate between wanting to laugh and cry about it, because I know that this is also said to, like you said, everyone who goes into that office or the clinic. And he said, we can either cure your condition with chemo, which would be good for about 6 months to a year, or you can go without it and you'll probably have 2 months to live. And I thought that was just brutal. Like, anybody to tell anybody else how long they have to live is just it's just an insult to the soul.
Well, it's hard because there's such a power discrepancy in that lands, and then that can be very much then become their reality because there's so much wrapped into the dynamic. But I like the way that you were talking about it before, because at the heart of it, it's like, you don't want to take ownership for curing anything. I don't cure something, but I think that there's a lot of things that can be done to optimize the personal environment of the person and the outside environment of that person that fosters a situation that is going to open up the doors to letting their natural healing ability get back online again. I mean, core naturopathic principles were around the vis, this natural healing energy that's in the body. And same as osteopathy. We talk about that's like a standard background for all in that profession. And it's like the whole goal of the practitioner is to be able to create an environment to allow that to express itself. So no practitioner is healing, but they might be aware of some of the parameters that are optimal to take place to allow that environment to start to build back up within themselves. And when you're in that environment, you talked at the beginning, you said life is like a river, and it's like, I would totally agree with that. And then what I think our job is to help create an environment so that person gets more in touch with where they are, and then they start to steer their own vessel a little bit better, rather than getting crashed back and forth. And then from that, outside of just opening up the door to possibly healing whatever physical ailment they're dealing with, I actually feel like it informs their life in a new way, and they actually come back with a different sense of being in the world. They start to participate in the world in a different way. The relationships around them can start to change. They show up with a different sense of meaning and purpose in their life that is sometimes maybe what that was even a catalyst for in the first place.
Yeah. You know what? You're making me think about something that's so important. The medical industry runs on deception. And one of the deceptions that people, they don't even realize this, but they think that what they're being sold is curing something. So they think that chemo's curing cancer, or they think that vaccines cure a disease. What they don't realize is that's not true. That's a deception. No pharmaceutical product has ever cured anything. Your body, every single time, has cured what it is. Now, people need to think about this, because they're going to go, wait a second, because people don't understand science. They don't even understand how a vaccine works, traditionally. And I won't even get into, I'm not saying I support vaccines, because I didn't even, my children are living examples of, they've never been vaccinated. So the point is, I read all kinds of books about vaccines when my kids were babies, because I wanted to learn everything about it. Here's the thing, is that a vaccine is stimulating your immune system, at least the theory of it. The toxicity is totally corrupted the industry, and it's a money thing. But the theory of it is stimulate the immune system in order to create antibodies that then prevent you from getting that disease, right? So it's your body that is actually healing itself. Same thing with cancer. Why do they do chemo? Well, the theory of it is just destroy like, let's just do an atomic bomb in your body. And by the way, that's going to kill a lot of healthy cells. Yes, we realize. But when we do an atomic bomb in your body, it's also going to kill the tumor. So we're going to do an atomic bomb and kill. Now, hold on. It didn't cure cancer. All it's done is killed the tumor. Didn't cure cancer. It's your body that then gets a chance. The theory of it is your body then has a chance to maybe start to recover. But here's what the medical system isn't telling them. Well, wait a second. If your body has to now recover from chemo, what are you doing to get your body to recover? And that's why cancer comes back with a vengeance with a lot of people. Maybe it doesn't come back a year or 2 years. Maybe it's 5 years later, 6 years later, because they're not doing what it takes So I want people that are listening to really understand, they probably do. Your audience is probably very educated this way, but people need to realize there's never been a cure for anything in the pharmaceutical industry, ever. It's always been your body that's been able to do it, to cure itself. So that's an important point.
Yeah. And like you said, even with treatments, it's like, I mean, I know some patients that have had different conventional treatments and it seemed to help, but the key is like once, even if that did help to knock things down enough, it's like it was the major changes that they did in their lifestyle that actually then allowed them to actually progress and stay cancer free or improve their health to a point where everything started to move in a better direction. So to me, it's like whether you've even gone through treatment or you haven't gone through treatment, it's like the end of the day, creating that environment is foundational. That's going to be the foundational piece that's either going to help you get there in the first place or prolong it and keep you healthy in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key. It's the environment. That's totally the key. And hopefully I hope the Healing Oasis inspires, and what you guys are doing, I hope it inspires more people to do similar things. I think that, I only have 7 cabins here. So we're talking about what is statistic. Okay, I'm going to make sure people can Google this, but I hope this statistic I'm about to say. So cancer, the Institute of Canada, the Cancer Society of Canada, I think they said 1 out of 2 Canadians in their lifetime are going to end up with cancer now. One out of 2, and 1 out of 4 are going to pass away. I'm pretty sure that's the stat. I posted it on LinkedIn a few months ago, and it was right from Canadian Cancer Society. So we have a serious problem. And actually, I think cancer is only going to get worse. Dr. Makis, I interviewed him. He's an oncologist from Edmonton, and he talks about the turbo cancer and what's happening. So we're only going to see it get worse. By the way, did you guys see that Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer bought $1 billion deals, bought these cancer? They know they've created a problem because all you got to do is follow the money. And just recently in the last year, both Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer have bought tech startups for cancer, treating cancer, targeting cancer in a different way. Why are they spending billions right now? I think Pfizer spent 50 billion and Johnson & Johnson spent 2 or 3 billion. Why are they spending that kind of money? Because they created a problem. Mm-hmm. They know they've created a massive amount of cancer in the world. And so what are they doing? They're buying another startup company that has this technology to try to offer it to the world as another solution, because they're going to make another billions and billions of more money off of it. So people need to wake up, and they need to see that this is a very corrupt world we're in, especially with the medical industry. And we need good people that have the right motives and the right desires to start things that are actually going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're coming up on time right now, Dave. I know you got to go in just a little bit, but if you break down, just before we go, kind of from your perspective, what do you think are like the top things that need to take place in order for the healing environment in someone's body to be able to start to turn back on?
Okay, well, first of all, that's a great question, and there's a lot of other people that are a lot more I would say experienced and educated to maybe answer that question than me. I do love doing research, and I've read a lot of books, and my wife and I have been into nutrition and natural healing for basically our entire marriage with our kids too. But I just want to preface it with that I think there's a lot of people that probably have a lot more experience and knowledge answering that question. I'll say from my personal perspective, what I believe in my heart, just from what I've learned, is that I think first and foremost, people have been attacked with the food industry. There's all kinds of pesticides and all kinds of toxins that are in the food. It's easy to microwave things. It's easy to buy packages. It's easy, and I think that's causing a lot of damage. So I would say first and foremost, be careful what you put in your body. That includes vaccines. So when I started to look into vaccines, it was way before COVID. It was 2005, 2006. What did I do? I read 3-4 books off Amazon. And if you think I had been vaccinated my whole life, so it's not like I was against vaccines. I just went and read and read and read. I wanted to know the history. I wanted to get different perspectives. And I realized the toxicity that was in these products. In fact, when I told my wife, when my daughter was 6 months old, she was going to get vaccinated. Of course, we were for it. I said to my wife, why don't you just ask for the ingredients? The doctor wouldn't give the ingredients. Well, that was a massive red flag. And that's what triggered me to buy all these books. So I would say, to answer Jason, the number one thing is be careful what you put in your body. Be careful that if the government's telling you that they're saving you, but they want to put something in your body, yeah, you might want to ask yourself, why aren't they giving you the ingredients? What kind of toxins are in it? What kind of food are you eating that's creating toxicity in your body? So number one, be very, very careful what you put in your body. Your body is a precious, precious thing. So you got to be careful. Number two, what's around your body? What's in your environment? Is it very stressful? Are you getting sunlight? Are you walking? Are you in nature? Are you sleeping well? All the things around you. I would say that that's incredibly important. I mean, so important. Your relationships. I mean, people underestimate this one, but are you in a toxic, relationship? Are you able to have love? Are you able to forgive? Are you holding on to things? So what are your relationships like? I have a very strong faith. I think people should have a connection, not just with themselves. I mean, it's a pretty empty life to think that you're just alone and there's no purpose in your life. I think you need to know that there is a purpose for your life, that you're loved and that you've been created for a purpose, and that no one can take that purpose away from you. So I think you need to really find that purpose and know that you are loved and that you're not alone and that you didn't just come from an ape and that you're just, that you're just worthless. I want people to know, and I think they need to realize it at the core of their being, that they are meant for eternity and that's why they have this longing. And I hope people can connect with that. So that was a deep question. So that's what comes to my mind. So hopefully that resonates with people. So.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think those are definitely some pretty foundational pieces on that topic. Dave, where can people learn more about the Healing Oasis?
They can go to the healingoasis.ca. And then if anybody is interested, maybe they have a friend or a relative or a family member, or maybe it's themselves where they do want to come to a place like this, they can fill out the form. I don't have a phone number simply because we don't have, like, our reception out here is horrible. We're in the middle of nature. It's only an hour from Kelowna, 40 minutes from Vernon. So it's a really easy, accessible place, but we're in the middle of nature. So people need to fill out the form. Somebody will get back to them. We really hope that you can spread the word. If people that are listening to this, even if they don't know somebody, they can spread the word about it. I really believe in order to make this work, it has to be a community that surrounds this, and we have to do this together. So yeah, it's the healingoasis.ca.
Those will be in the show notes, all those links, so you can check that out. And yeah, I mean, from the pictures we saw, and we haven't been out there yet, but I'm sure we'll end up out there to visit you guys at some point, but really stunning, beautiful piece of the world. So,
and to actually have no Wi-Fi is such a blessing. To go in an environment where the frequency you're tapping into is one of nature. That's going to be very uplifting and energizing, just that alone.
Yeah, of nature and of yourself. Mm-hmm. You kind of got to get away from all those other ones to be able to actually connect back in. So, Dave, that was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.